Viz Review. It's exciting to be here, and I would love a quick confirmation that you can see me, hear me, and maybe tell me where you're dialing in from, how long you've been doing data visualization, if you're using Tableau, maybe how long you've been using it. I would love to see some confirmation that this is all working before I dive into this Viz Review. So I am going to just, see that this something pops up before I dive any deeper. But let me give you some quick description or explanation of how this is going to work. So last time round, when we ran Makeover Monday, we would have a special hashtag, there was a deadline, all that kind of stuff. We want to do away with all this admin effort this time round. So we are just using the Makeover Monday hashtag for this review. I will pick a selection of different visualizations, just kind of as they pop up, and give feedback. Okay, you can see in here. Excellent, great. Thank you, Brittany. And so as they come through, a mix of different styles of visualizations, rather than reviewing 10 bar charts in a row, giving my feedback on different types. So it could be, it's very likely that your viz doesn't get reviewed or doesn't get reviewed every week. That is not some kind of choice by me or anything. I just want to make sure that we don't create a big admin monster of expectations and lots of preparation, all that. And we also only have half an hour every week. That's what I can commit to right now. But we'll see how we go. We'll do a bit of trial and error and see how people find the session, what they would suggest, what they liked, and also what you didn't like or what you think needs to change. And then I can adjust as needed. So I can, if I look this way, it's because that's the screen where the chat is. So good to see that there are people dialing in, they can hear me, they can see me. So we can get started. So I'm going to switch on my screen share, and we're just going to go through the Twitter hashtag. You can see at the top, I've searched for Makeover Monday, and we're just going to have a quick look at what there is. Now, feel free to leave any comments in the chat. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe to Andy's channel, where we're going to run these every week. Sometimes we might have to adjust the time because of life and work things, but you'll get notice of that. So every week we'll schedule, for the next week in advance so that you know when the next session is. And before I start, one last thing. Take the feedback that I give other people and apply it to your own work. It's great if you get your work reviewed. I know those can be, quite helpful and satisfying. But if you build a bar chart and I'm reviewing a bar chart, the same comments probably will apply. So take whatever I share and use it as much as you can. And if you have clarifying questions afterwards, post them ideally on Twitter, because that's where everyone else can help you as well. We're not going to be online all the time, but there will be other people this evening, this morning, wherever you are, who can jump in and clarify anything that you might not have understood. So let's get started with the first viz. And I think what I'm going to do in the interest of time is mainly look at the images. Sometimes there might be stuff I want to explore in Tableau Public, but that will take a bit more time, and I'd rather get through a few more vizzes. So I'm going to start with Daniel's viz, and I'm just going to bring up the image. That's probably nice and big on your screen. Welcome back. Yeah, great to see people tune in. That's excellent. So this week was about military spending. I did see Andy create his viz, but I haven't dived. I don't even know how to say the word. I didn't dive into the data myself. So this is going to be me as basically a layperson audience looking at these visualizations to see, do I understand them? How can they be improved? So we're looking at military spending, USA, the next 10, and others. That would be my first comment is military spending, I think, is clear enough. The subtitle isn't so clear because I don't know from the get-go that this is a ranking of who spends the most. It could be anything in military spending. So what I've learned recently is, and I've been a culprit for the longest time, of trying to be clever but not clear, and we should do it the other way around. So make sure your titles, your subtitles are as clear as they can possibly be, even if it requires more words, because that way at least the audience know what they're going to get. And if they're like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting, I'm going to look into this, that's what you want, rather than, what's behind this? Oh, I'll tune out and move on to the next thing. So that would be my first piece of feedback. Now, this image Of course, it's a bit smaller and it's on a small screen, so this might look different in the Tableau Public version. And actually, let me quickly check that before I make that comment. It's a bit better, but what I'm referring to are these descriptions, or the text in the filter at the top is really small. I am getting older, but it's really small and quite hard to see. And there is a lot of space in those boxes. So I would blow that up, make it nice and big, make it as easy as possible for people to see stuff, to interact with it, to comprehend it visually, and just fill up the box. I think we should leave behind the trend that was in design for a while, probably in the early 2000s, of everything in like super small font and all lowercase and stuff, because it's just really hard to see. So that would be my feedback here. Larger font in both the stacked bar chart and the bar chart at the bottom. So just quickly checking. It's sad that I only consider Twitter submissions. I don't know where else I would find them. Okay, so that's my first piece of feedback. Then we have a line chart that looks interesting, but I don't quite know. Okay, so I have to read. The last 30 years have seen China increase the military spending. Military should be lowercase. Sorry, I'm pedantic when it comes to spelling. Increased their military spending from around 28 billion. I assume this is in US dollars in 1992 to over 270 billion in 2021. So another way to say that could be it's been an almost 10x increase or tenfold increase in military spending. It's interesting that he's called out China, because I don't see the immediate connection to China, because the first line I see in the line chart is the United States. So what I would suggest is, well, you could move China to the left, but it's probably there because it's, part of that second group. Even just maybe having an arrow, but then China isn't called out as a separate country. So you either change the text or you change the chart. If you want to keep the chart because you're talking about the next 10, so China, France, Germany, and 7 more countries, whatever those 7 countries might be, I would suggest to just clarify in that little subtitle there, that sentence, to say, China is part of the next 10 biggest spenders on military spending after the US. They have increased, and maybe they were the main driver in that group for that increase in the line chart. Other than that, great to include the data source. One recommendation is always include your name on the image as well, so that if anyone copies and pastes it somewhere else because they love it, you still get the credit for it. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Very different style. So Elisa, let's have a look. Let me just quickly flick through. So there are 3 different things here. I like that she's included her first draft of what it could look like, and then okay, so this is I guess the final version, the third part. So it's a bit like a newspaper article. I'm guessing the text she will probably update. I like having small multiples, and I like having these various line charts so you can compare them. What I do struggle with, though, is so the numbers, is this in dollars? Because I think that's probably incorrect. It should probably be in millions, so it should probably be 100 million. So it should be in thousands of dollars. Or is it in, it's probably not billions, because I think that's more up there. So checking the numbers to see what the magnitude is, and I'm guessing they're all on the same scale, but because they're all quite flat, so the line chart should be a 3x2, so 3 wide by 2 tall, to give it the right ratio, and so that the shape isn't all flat and that kind of stuff. So squish that up a little bit, because you might not need that third column of text. Make that a bit narrower so that the lines have a bit more of a shape to them. And I would maybe give them a start and end point. They just look a little bit lost in space for me at the moment. I don't know how else to describe it. Again, the labels for the countries are a little bit small. I like that they're all in the same place because that's nice and consistent, but maybe they could even have white shading or the light gray that you've got as a background behind them so they stand out a bit more. Yeah, and just the lines, they need a bit of an anchor somewhere. So having a bit of a think about that. But I like the style. I like the approach of making it look a bit newspaperish. Okay. I can look at, sorry, there's a comment. I need to clarify that for everyone watching. So there's a comment about reviewing it in Tableau Public. I can do that for some of them. I think sometimes the image tells us enough. I can't go through every tooltip as well because otherwise it just takes a lot of time. But I think selectively we'll do that. And I've also been thinking just before the session that what I might do is some weeks to go through several visualizations fairly quickly, kind of like I'm doing now, and then sometimes do a deep dive on one of them where there is more to talk about or where there's a few more things we can discuss specifically because the person has included it. Okay, that's an interesting one. Well, why don't we bring this one to Tableau Public? Here we go. Okay, so UD. So this is about military spending. Of course, because that was the viz this week. So it starts with a line chart looking across. Okay, so this is basically one decade at a time. I really like those reference lines for the decades because you don't need to have every year listed or even every 2 years. Having it by decade is really good. And also, I think the spending probably doesn't change so much year over year, but over the decades, as you have changes in government and changes in political situations, you probably do see a significant change in military spending. So especially like in the US, it going up a lot following, 2001, which I'm guessing was triggered by 9/11. Now, one thing I would love at the start of this visualization is a bit of a description, so a bit of context on what military spending means, what's behind this topic, what the data you looked at, maybe what's the key finding. With the US dominating so much above all of the other countries, that should be explained or at least called out, because otherwise people are like, oh, I see these things, but I don't know what to make of them because I didn't see the data myself and there is no text to guide me. So think about how maybe a data journalist would approach this in a story where you have multiple charts, you have text in between. You could use that approach and just put, just a paragraph, 2-3 sentences that explain what I'm looking at, why I'm looking at it, why is this relevant. And yeah, I like the big numbers and the big labels. I don't know why the countries are underlined, because underlined to me always means a hyperlink, so just be mindful of that. Also, so upper is spending, which I'm guessing is the upper chart. Lower is composition ratio. What does composition ratio mean? So that means nothing to me. And I also don't know what one is. Okay, so that's United States. Could have guessed that. But like these are actually the countries. So this, and I imagine it's not all the countries in the world, but a tree map always has, parts of a whole. So if it has countries, I expect it to be either the whole world or a logical group like G7 or the EU or Latin America or something that we consider, okay, that's the group and it contains all the members of that group. So just be mindful of that when you use a tree map. It could also be the 50 biggest spenders, and that's okay. But then I know these are just 50 of the countries, not all of the countries in the world. Okay, tooltips, because that's why we looked at this in Tableau Public. I like that the tooltips are nicely formatted. It's nice and big. It doesn't really tell me a whole lot about the data. So it tells me how much the spending was, but I also get exactly the same information in the chart above. And for the US, I know it's the first rank because it's the highest line and it's kind of by itself. There is nothing that gives me, I don't know why 9, for example, is, oh, okay, so this shows how China has risen in the ranks. That wasn't clear to me. I know US and China are both red up here, but that didn't translate for me. But also there's nothing in the other boxes that makes me interested in hovering or clicking on them because I don't know what's hidden there. So it's if you make me hover over different boxes, there needs to be an incentive, like hover to discover this and this and this. At the moment, it's like, oh, I have to keep all of these things in my head because there's no text. Romania, where do I find Romania in the other ones? Let's see if I click on it. It doesn't actually highlight Romania in the other charts. So my search for Romania might take me ages. So that in terms of interactive visualizations, I think a bit of guidance on how to use it would be great for the user here. Okay, moving right along. Oh, we have a bar chart. Okay, let's look at it on Tableau Public because you guys asked so nicely. Let me quickly check the comments while this comes up. Okay. Just want to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, all good. Military spending. So the first thing I notice is the color. Now, I don't mind dark background, but the rest of the colors need to pop, and the green is really dark on the black. I have two different screens, and let me just make my laptop screen lighter. So on my secondary screen, I can see the background image with this kind of gray, dark gray image with a cartoony tank. On my laptop screen, it's almost impossible to see. I don't think it needs to be there. I would prefer just a black or dark gray background without any imagery in it, because everything that you add, visual layers that you add, impacts my visual perception of the data. It just changes it. So sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. So I would suggest, if you want to use the green for military, I would prefer, try this out, to use this light gray as a background and black font than to have the black font and the light gray, because the black just really, for me, collides with the green a bit. It's hard to see. Or you could have the black background and the light gray bars. But if you want to use the green, I would go with a light background. So which countries spend most of their budget on the military in 2021? So this is... Okay, so the subtitle here talks about China, India, and the US having the largest military. So I guess that's the total spend. It says they spend a small percentage of the total government budget on the military. Okay, so, and then it talks about, okay, compared to most Asian countries. I don't fully understand the comparison to Asian countries. Like, I like that you've used a subset of countries, but I think comparing China and India to the Asian countries makes sense, but comparing the US to just Asian countries, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. Happy to be proven wrong, but I think it's because, you know, China, India, and all these other countries geographically are all in that same region of the world, whereas the US is somewhere else and a very different beast. So I don't fully understand that comparison. But I would include here, because at first I'm like, oh, how is Belarus at the top? Because we've seen all these other visits with China and the US at the top. I understand now it's the percentage that countries spend of their government budget on the military. I would repeat the word government budget in there. So I suppose this is, you know, the military spend divided by the total government budget, which I find, you know, is a very interesting perspective. Just clarify that in there, so that people fully understand. Okay, and there's a comparison to GDP. There's per capita spend, and per spend, incredible. Okay, so Zimbabwe. So Qatar and Oman are in your list, but what is Zimbabwe doing in there? Because Zimbabwe is in Africa. So again, I don't understand what that is doing in this comparison with Asian countries. It's an interesting data point, but it doesn't seem to fit in here. Okay. Moving on to the next one. We've done Danielle's. Okay, so Kerry, we have an image. Actually, let me see if I can make that a bit bigger. There we go, that's bigger. Okay, nice and easy to see. Okay, good. Just checking the comments there. Great. So military spending per capita. So this makes me think very much of Game of Thrones. Maybe it's the font, the kind of I don't even know like what you call these things, like not the circles obviously, but the highlighting in them, and the style of the map. So makes me think a bit of Game of Thrones. Maybe that's deliberate, but I don't know if that really fits with the modern, countries and modern military stuff. I like that it groups the countries into, well, Europe. I'm guessing this is Europe. I don't know if it includes anything else. Yeah, Europe, Russia. We've got Middle East. We've got Asian countries. Okay, where do we have? Oh, this is per capita. Okay, I was looking for India and I couldn't quite find it because so the challenge, I guess, with this visualization is some of the circles are so small you can't fit any labels in them. I really like the grouping. I think that's helpful, but Europe really dominates as a group because it has so many countries. So not quite sure how to solve that, except to say maybe the background map can be made bigger so that the Europe circle could actually sit on top of Europe, because it covers a lot of Canada, some of the US, quite a bit of Africa, and the Middle East, whereas the Middle East actually covers a lot of Asia. So I think that's my biggest challenge here. Other than that, is interesting for an impression on what a country's doing, what are they spending per capita, and who are some of the big spenders per capita, because that pops out, Qatar, Israel, Kuwait, US, and all that. Of course, hard to see any details in terms of numbers, but that might not be so important, because do I really care how many euros and dollars and pounds are spent on the military per capita? Is that meaningful for me as a normal person? Or am I more interested in, oh, I had no idea Norway was spending that much per capita compared to Germany or compared to, Mexico or something like that. So I think that's a very interesting take. Gradient spheres, that's the word. Looks like a board game of Risk. Oh, I haven't played Risk in probably 2 decades, so that's a good point. Okay. All right, and let's find the next one. So the only reason I'm going one after the other is because they're all quite different. Otherwise, I would probably skip. So don't feel like, oh, they've just, created theirs recently and they get picked on, or they get picked for this review. Now, first comment is, this is really, really large. Even if I reset my screen to 100%, I can't actually fit the whole viz on my screen. I have to say, personally, I'm not a huge fan of like these light yellow backgrounds. They look a bit old school. And they add something, but I think if you want to have just a non-white background, I would probably go with something a bit lighter than this, because it feels like another color, because you've got a gradient in the area chart where we've got quite a few colors, and then the yellow is another color. Whereas if it was just not white, it probably would blend in a bit better. So it's too big. It needs to be shrunk a little bit so I can comprehend it in one piece. I think the title font is, makes sense, very much a military font. It could have a bit more explanation in the subtitle. So don't be afraid to use a whole sentence or even 2 sentences in the subtitle, because if you can explain something to people that shows them, oh, there's actually some insight in this, rather than, oh, I have to find the insights myself, I think you do them a service, and they will be more likely to look for more stuff. Because at first, so if I see, title, subtitle, and I have to then read through the entire viz, through every label and everything to figure out what's the story here, that's a lot of effort. it might seem silly, but how many times do we not even finish a book or an online article, right? Our attention span has decreased a lot. So to capture people's attention, give them something of value up front, and they're like, oh, this person has really analyzed this data. I'm going to see what else they found. But give them one thing at the beginning. Given the size of the viz, the font is really small. And again, I struggle with small fonts. So other people will too, because while I'm getting older, I'm not that old. So if you think of your average audience looking on a laptop screen, make it easy for them to consume the information you're presenting. So what is going on here visually? I have no idea. I'm trying to, okay, so let's scroll across. The information is in the bottom right. Or maybe there is, oh, there is no information. Well, it is, obviously there is something in there, but I thought it was like an explanation of maybe how to read the chart. So where is the zero line? To me, this looks almost like a, like a butterfly chart, but it's not. It's a steam graph, and I don't understand why. So the United States is this big green mass in the middle, but why does it go like up and down as well? Why? This is hard to read. Because I don't have a baseline. I don't know where we're starting from. I have no idea what the magnitude is because there is no axis. I see the timeline on both sides. So I'm thinking somewhere in the middle is 0 and something happens on the top and something happens on the bottom. But without an axis, I will not know. I might never know. I can hover, but there is no tooltip. So I'm reliant on the labels that have been provided. And yeah, the lines being gray, I would at least recommend, if you want to stick with this type of visualization, to put like an anchor. So maybe a bullet, like a point, what do you call it? A circle at the end of the line. So I know exactly where it ends. And what I'm wondering is, not everything has been labeled, not every color. How do I go across? There are labels here on the left side. Oh, okay, I can do something there. But I don't understand why it's going down. Did it go down? Did it go up? The US? So if I hover over the US, I just don't know what that means. Does it mean I guess it means there was more spending in the bulgy bit and then less again. And then I think this could have been much easier as a line chart. That's my feedback here. Oh, okay. Richard, let's have a look. Okay, sorry, I'm just quickly checking the chat. So there's a comment thus far. There hasn't been a really good chart apart from the original. The original is hideous. I don't think the original is useful at all, and we should probably look at it, but I forgot, and I will just skip that part. There are plenty of good charts out there. Some of them just need a little tweak. So I think anyone who has criticism shall show their viz. So I don't know, Metihan, whether you've submitted a visualization, but happy to see it. So this one here, I like it. It's playful. Not quite what I would associate with the military, but I guess they're like grenades or bombs. So a little bit macabre or morbid or whatever the right term is. So we have Russia. So this is the 2021 military budget in US dollars, which is interesting. I like when people compare it to the per capita spend, but also I think the total spend is really interesting because it's not always down to a per capita basis. Some countries are just huge military powers, even if they have smaller populations. So I think it definitely makes me want to look at it. The tooltips could be removed because they give me no additional information. So either remove them or put something additional into the tooltips that gives me something interesting that I can't see on the first glance. But I think it's a really cool picture. Okay, let's do one more. We've done area charts, we've done line charts, a bar chart, a very simple bar chart. Well, you'll know what I'll say about this, and that's the background. I don't think the yellow works. Okay. So yeah, the yellow, I think if it was white, that would be better because the background makes you perceive the colors in the foreground differently. So the red will look different on a white background. Maybe not much different, but it will look different. And while I think it's cool to use, it's fine to use red to call out the US, I would make it a little bit less of a bright red, something either a bit darker or just with less, like, I don't know, fluorescence or something. It's really intense. And I think if you make it a slightly darker red or even a blue or something, that will be easier on the eyes. But I like the simplicity of it. I think it's really simple. It breaks down the world's military spending. It breaks it down for, a single year, who spent the most in which year, and I think that's really effective. So well done. Let's do one more. Okay. Oh, let's go for this one. Where is the link? Okay, there is no link to Tableau Public or any other kind of interactive tool, so we'll just go with the image. One recommendation: don't put so many hashtags in the tweet because it makes it really hard. How can I open the picture? Okay. Oh, here we go. It makes it really hard to read through stuff. I'm not going to zoom in. So we have a line chart, and even though this is not sorry for my ignorance. This is Spanish, right? This is not Portuguese. This is terrible for me to say on a live stream. But anyway, I think it's Spanish. So, but because I know what the topic is and I know what's going on, and I can understand that this is economies and the 7 biggest economies in Latin America and the Caribbean, I can understand enough. So I like this a lot, actually. I think the colors work. The colors for Brazil and Colombia, yes, it's Spanish. Phew, okay. They are repeated in the text and then in the visualization. So I know, Brazil is something green and Colombia is something yellowish, to look out for that. It's nice to have only chosen 7 countries because everything more probably would have been too busy on the chart. I think this is a really good design, actually. You'd probably, if you want to focus on Brazil and Colombia, you don't need the other countries to be in color as well. But if you made them all gray because they overlap, it might be hard to see the progression of the line. So I think this is great. Really well done. Okay, one more. We'll do to like 6:35 p.m. Let's find another. Oh, there's even like an animate. Ooh, a line chart race. See, that's pretty cool. We've done that. Oh, okay. All right, let's look at this next one. Okay, excellent. So always prepared for war. So this is one of those examples of clever, not clear. Might be a clever title, tells me nothing about what the viz is about. Might be about war, could be something completely different, could just be a play on words. So make your title super clear, especially make them as a training ground. So, whatever you do, no one keeps score. You don't get, fired because of it or promoted because of it. But if you want to take these skills into a business context, these are my recommendations. That's why I'm doing these reviews, because I want to help people take what they learn in Makeover Monday and actually apply it in their day jobs. And my recommendation there is to always be as clear as you possibly can, to assume probably the most basic knowledge of your stakeholders. So a clear title that tells them what it's about in probably a bit more words than you would like to do is not a bad thing. So yeah, do that. For over 3 decades now, the US military spending has alone been equal to the rest of the world. What does that mean? I guess it means for 3 decades, the US has spent as much on the military as all other countries combined. But that's not true, because it's not actually 50%. It's been close, but it's not been 50%. So the chart below looks at the share of the US military spending versus the rest of the world from 88 to 21. That's the stuff that needs to be in the title. but a bit shorter. So it could be US military spending compared to the rest of the world, 88 to 21. That could be a title. People would know what it's all about. What I would say is that these donuts, they take up quite a bit of space for not that much information. What I would suggest, if you want to stick to the donuts, if you want to stick to the colors, red on black is really hard to read. I would change the red to a different color, or I would make the background a different color. And I would make the ring of the donut thicker, because you have a lot of blank space, but not much space in between the rows of donuts. But between the columns, you've got space. So make that a bit more equal. And you could probably, so you make the year a bit larger, make the donut ring bigger or thicker, wider. And also, why is the US on the left? I would suggest that people probably read a donut or a circle in a clockwise fashion usually. So if you're talking about the US, if your focus is on the US, the ring should be on the US color should be on the right side, and the rest of the world is what fills up the circle. That would be my recommendation here. Okay, that is all the visitors we have time for, because I have another call in 20 minutes and have to get some dinner in between. So I want to just quickly check through any last comments before we tune out. It's been great to see people getting involved on the chat, so please keep that up, because while I'm doing this myself, there's plenty of people who have great opinions, who have lots of experience, who can give you tips and advice, and they can also pick up things that maybe I can't see because I'm looking at the other screen. So keep doing that. Also, make sure that as you go through Makeover Monday and you see stuff happening on Twitter, follow the other people who are participating, and then they can follow you back as well, because you'll be becoming a really nice community, especially the new people coming in, but also the people who've been there before, our Makeover Monday veterans. So helping each other out, building connections, learning from each other, you'll be getting some inspiration. And who knows, maybe one day you'll be colleagues. You never know what happens. Stranger things have happened with Makeover Monday. So that's it for this week. I will be back next week. I need to double check the time. I think next week should be fine for 6 o'clock. Sometimes we'll adjust the time, as I mentioned, but you'll know that well in advance. So yeah, this has been fun. Looking forward to next week. If you've learned something, I think you should put that on Twitter. We'll put the link for this video for anyone who's missed it. We'll put that on Twitter. So maybe in the comments there, you can share what you learned, or also, update your viz, post a new picture of it, all that stuff, so that others can see what the value is. And with that, over and out. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Take care. Bye-bye.